Okay, George, I know you've got a lot of things going on when it comes to your screenwriting and producing side, but I also know, as we discussed beforehand, that I can't ask you about everything. So tell me, what's the most important urgent piece of news? I know there was a press release just this last week, so start with that.
That's about a novel from 1978 called Quag Keep, written by Andre Norton, who she wrote a ton of sci-fi fantasy novels, won dozens of awards. If you go to andrenorton.com, you can see all of her history and her awards. And she was really an innovator, and in a world especially. This is from the 30s all the way through.
Right. I was thinking she was writing during World War II.
Yeah, exactly. An industry dominated by men traditionally.
Right.
She was one of the women who her material was just as good as anybody else's, and in fact better. She won a ton of awards.
Right.
And they weren't awards like, oh, this is the women's version of the award. They were the award.
Right. She beat out the men.
Yeah, she's a fantastic writer.
Right.
She did this great novel, fantasy novel in '78 called Quag Keep, which is about a bunch of people. You can look it up on Amazon. You can still buy it, still in print. About a bunch of people who play a role-playing game, and they wind up getting transported into the world of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to figure out why that happened, and they eventually discover that their own world is in peril.
Right.
And so they're not only trying to get home, but they're trying to save the world that they're trying to get home to. So, and that ties in with what's going on in this fantasy universe they've entered. So, you can read it right now. You can go online and buy the book. But we just announced we're working with the Andre Norton estate. She unfortunately passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But we announced that we're starting to develop a script for that movie. So hopefully it's geared to be a summer tentpole, like 3D fun movie, kind of like Transformers, but set in the world of Lord of the Rings. So
right.
You get like these people from our world that anybody can relate to, and shove them into a world where there's this whole fantasy epic going on, and it's fun, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're freaking out, and they just want to get the heck out of there, but they realize they have to kind of become heroes. Instead of in the virtual world of the game, they in reality have to become heroes. So it's a great novel. It's a really fun read, and I think it'll make a great movie. So very excited about that. So that's the most new information. And then there's a movie I've been working on for a long time called Zombie with an X.
Oh yes.
And we've done various things with it, but the newest thing is we have a director attached to it. Mm-hmm. His name is Stephen Goldman. Mm-hmm. You can look him up on IMDb.
Yep.
And he's known for a movie he did called Trailer Park of Terror. Mm-hmm. Obviously, horror slasher movie. And he's a great guy. I'm really excited to be working with him. And he has producing partners, and so it's starting to come together. And I'm hoping that in the next, short amount of time we can get everything funded and together, so that we can start doing casting and all that sort of thing, and get shooting. It's been a while, but it took 10 years to get the first Transformers movie made. So you just never know how quickly things are going to happen. So trying to be patient, but I'm excited about it. So we'll see. I'm just glad that Steven's involved. He's also done a million videos. If you go and look on his site, you'll see, because I think there's a link to his personal site. Mm-hmm. For people, from country music to heavy metal, everything in between, and his stuff is great. So I know it's going to look great, and I'm really glad. He totally gets the script, he gets the tone, and he's excited about it. So. And very, very easy to work with, very collaborative. So it's great, and that's a recent development on that front.
Very cool. Do you have any other film-related projects you can talk about at this point?
Nothing specific. I mean, I'm always working on different things and at various stages of them.
I know.
So yes,
always busy.
I'm always busy, and you have to be if you want to be in the business, because some things fall apart, and you never know which ones those are going to be. So you're always trying to just keep getting involved in projects and or creating your own. So I'm writing. I just wrote a couple of scripts to try to sell. A comedy script that's sort of a modern day kind of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Uh-huh.
So somebody who's like 30, and so instead of being in high school, somebody who's like 30 and really needs a day off, and his friend, the Ferris type of character, his friend takes him on a personal day, and they have an adventure. And
Can you write one about maybe a geeky, balding, middle-aged, overweight? Never mind. We probably can add anything we want. So, and then I did a pilot for a sci-fi TV series set in the near future during World War III. So I've written that, and then you write a Bible for a TV series. So I wrote the pilot script and a Bible. So try to take that out as well. And when you say a Bible
basically is what you do with a TV show so that when all the various different writers are working on the show, they can go back to it and refer to who this character is and all the background on that character, but also the information about the world, the setting, and anything that's specific that they might need to know. Certain specific ways you do things, like let's say you have characters. There's a main component of the show where characters speak a different language. How is that handled when you write the script? Do you write it in English and then it's subtitled, or do you write it in the language in which they're speaking so that they actually speak in that language? So you things like that. You create a Bible that basically it tells you everything you need to know about writing an episode for the show.
Very cool.
So, and also gives some ideas about the overall arcs for, say, an entire season. So we know the characters are going to start at this point, and then these relationships are going to change and develop, and by the end of the season, we're going to kind of end up here. So that's what a Bible is.
Can you tell what that is about in particular?
It's a ragtag group of U.S. military personnel, men and women, who were stranded behind enemy lines during World War III, and they wind up. Instead of trying to get home, they wind up staying in this Casablanca-style town. Basically, there's an armistice, a truce, in this one town in the middle of enemy territory. So they carry out missions for their side of the conflict in secret, because you're not supposed to be doing anything that involves the war. Otherwise, you're violating the peace, and you'll be thrown in jail.
Right.
So they have to secretly carry out these missions against the enemy. But on top of that, there's this kind of Battlestar Galactica element of the relationships. So that was one of my models for the show, was because I love about the new Battlestar Galactica, was to have a lot of relationships going on between all the characters. It's definitely an ensemble piece. There's like 12 main characters. So it's got action. But there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of relationship material there as well. And I mean, not necessarily romantic relationships, although that's there, but they start to question whether somebody on their own team is trustworthy or not.
Okay.
That sort of thing. So it's about friendships and all kinds of different relationships.
Very cool.
That's about it, I think, that's going on that's even worth talking about. I have tons of ideas of things I want to do, but see when I get around to them.
You've got lots going on. And I was just thinking about what we were describing about the gaming system, Secret Fire, and then you were talking about the relationships there. Do you find that your previous work on gaming systems enhances your ability to work on a project like that?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things in the new supplement is a whole system of charts for developing relationships between the characters. So you can start the game and you know how you are connected to everybody else at the table. And so when I'm writing characters, I think one of the first things I think about is, well, what's their relationships? And I know I have all these lists of types of relationships that I can just look at and say, oh, so kind of like building a character for a role-playing game.
Right.
So yeah, no, I think it's, and also plotting wise, coming up with a plot, like what's the premise? What's, premise for an adventure that you play in a role-playing game, or a premise for an episode of a TV show.
Right.
It really does help. I think it's a good background to come from. A lot of people in the industry have said that their first encounter with making something on their own, doing some kind of creative endeavor, was playing a role-playing game like D&D. I remember there was an article with Jon Favreau in the LA Times talking about that. You probably can Google it and find the actual article, but he had played Dungeons & Dragons when he was a kid, and that kind of started him down the road of being creative, and then we get Iron Man. So
very cool.
It's great.
Yeah. I just, as you were talking about that, it's like, writing this Bible for this show versus writing Secret Fire, it just seems like it's vastly different and the same thing at the same time.
Exactly. That's a perfect way of putting it. It's vastly different and the same thing at the same time. I mean, and one of the core differences is that when I'm writing something that's a story, I have total control over the characters.
Right.
When it's a role-playing game, the players have control over the characters. So that's the difference. But if I can get them to create characters that are three-dimensional, I think it makes, and you can play any kind of game. I'm not saying my game is better than any other game. It's just a style of play that I happen to like. So
right.
I like to run a game where people are playing three-dimensional characters, and are kind of inventing a story on their own. I'm not telling them what story they need to tell. They're coming up with their own story interactively, and it's fun and memorable, and we can recount the storyline later. Whereas in other games, if it's really mechanics based and you're just rolling dice, you don't remember what happened in a particular battle. But if in Secret Fire, if you think back about a particular battle, you're very likely to remember very specific moments where characters did crazy things because they were both moronic and foolish as two of their traits.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
They light themselves on fire and attack a tree ant or something.
Well, George, as you know, I like to give the person when I interview someone the opportunity to close with something weird and wonderful that they might want to tell their fans and my audience about.
Sure.
What would you like to talk about to close?
Well, we're doing this interview at Gen Con in Indianapolis, as you mentioned at the beginning, and I just want to say that it's an amazing convention. It's been going on forever. I think I've been to at least 12, maybe more, and not all in the same place. It's not always been in Indy. It's been in other places like Milwaukee, and prior to that in other places, all the way back to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Right. Hence the name Gen Con.
Right.
So it's a great
Geneva
convention.
I
know, which is great. Exactly.
Lake Geneva Convention.
Which is, I'm sure they thought that they must have thought of that. But it's just a great convention. I'm a guest of honor. I've been a guest of honor the last 2 years, and the people have treated me very well, and I've been paying attention. They treat the attendees very well. They're very respectful, and they put on a great show. So I just want to thank them for having me. It's been a great opportunity to talk to people, because a lot of times you're just sitting in your apartment, working on your material, and it's a great, 40,000 people converge in one place at one time who like this kind of stuff that you do. You get to talk to them, and it's just a great experience. So if you haven't ever been to Gen Con and you like role-playing games or miniatures games or any kind of gaming, especially, but even films or
the film festival.
Manga and costumes, all kinds of. There's tons of stuff going on here. Just go to the Gen Con site; you can see it all. But I highly recommend it coming at least once.
One of the best costume contests in the Midwest.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's centrally located. So from wherever you're coming from, you might be able to drive, or it's a short flight. So highly recommend it, and I'm having a great time and looking forward to the rest of the convention.
Don't forget, there's dancing, and there's the programs they have for spouses who are,
This is true.
The gamer widows to go.
Yes,
work
there's
on
plenty for them to do. So
daycare.
no one will be bored. Yeah, if you have young kids, there's daycare. They think of everything. So it's a great convention.
Yeah, totally awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Ed Greenwood was one of the keynote.
Yes.
The people in the keynote and their Council of Wizards.
Yes, and he's fantastic. He's been around since the beginning, working on Forgotten Realms and many other things for D&D. So if you want to meet any of the people that you've never gotten a chance to meet, they're all here usually. So come on down and next year and have a good time.
Yep, I rather doubt when he was creating the Forgotten Realms that he looked like Elminster, but he sure does now.
That's funny. I bet you he'd probably agree with that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
When they were doing the council meeting or the keynote meeting, it's like he walks up and it's like, this is the creator of Elminster, and he's become Elminster.
Yes. And I would say that Ed is one of the nicest guys that I have ever met. So Elminster once in a while can get grumpy, but Ed I've never seen him get cross in any way. He's just a super nice guy. I really enjoyed working with him, and any encounter I've ever had with him has been great. So that's a guy you should try to meet when you come to Gen Con next year.
Yeah, I just when you were mentioning Gen Con in conjunction, and earlier you mentioned Ed Greenwood had worked on your The Secret Fire.
Yes.
And I just couldn't. Elminster flashed to mind because they were also talking about the Forgotten Realms.
Sure.
The new directions they're taking. So
yeah.
Anyhow, totally awesome. So thank you for the plug for Gen Con.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that, but usually people want to talk about themselves and their own projects.
I know, I like that. I love to promote other people, and they deserve it. They're doing a great job, and I hope it goes on forever.
Totally awesome. Well, I know you want to get back to the convention center.
Yes,
and,
there's a dealer's room. There's a huge dealer's room where you can buy lots of stuff. It's really cool, so it's another good reason to come.
Well, thank you again. And from Indianapolis, Indiana at Gen Con, this is George Strayton and John Collins with the Weird Review. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you, John.